And welcome back to Millennium TV 24. I am Kim Seabrook. That was a great segment. And next, what else do we have in news in California? Let's get to California. California eyes shuttered malls, stores for new housing. California state lawmakers are grappling with a particular 21st century problem. What to do with the growing number of shopping malls and big box retail stores left empty by consumers shifting their purchases to the web. A possible answer in crowded California cities is to build housing on these sites, which already have ample parking and are close to exiting neighborhoods. But local zoning laws often don't allow housing at these locations. Changing the zoning is such a hassle that many developers don't even bother trying, and it's often not worth it for local governments to change the designations. They will prefer to find new retailers because sales taxes produce more revenue than residential property taxes. However, with a stubborn housing shortage pushing prices to an all-time highs, State 1A bill that cleared the state Senate last week would let developers build houses on most commercial sites without changing the zoning. Another proposal would pay local governments to change the zoning to let developers build affordable housing, and lawmakers are moving to pass new laws to get around those barriers. If successful, it's believed California would be the first state to allow multi-family housing on commercial sites statewide. And that was said by Eric Phillips. He's the Vice President of Policy and Legislation for the California chapter of the America Planning Association. Developers who use the law still would have to obey locally approved design standards. But Phillips said the law would limit local governments' abilities to reject the projects. That's why some local leaders oppose the bill, arguing it undermines their authority. All right, and what else do we have going on in news? We have more U.S. citizens apprehended for moving drugs over border. An increasing number of American citizens have been apprehended as they have tried to smuggle illegal drugs into the United States since the start of the coronavirus pandemic, an uptick that's some amid travel restrictions at the border with Mexico. And for more than a year, the closure of the southern border to non-essential traffic has sharply limited the number of foreign citizens entering the U.S. by land. The rules have been extended until at least June 21st, but Mexican authorities have allowed most U.S. citizens to walk or drive south across the border with relative ease. The law enforcement official and drugs trafficking experts say that the border rules put in place in April 2020 to curb the spread of the coronavirus and their lopsided enforcement are driving the rise in U.S. citizens involved in borderland drug busts. Mexican traffickers, however, have long recruited Americans for the job. U.S. citizens were apprehended nearly 7 times more than Mexican citizens between October 2020 and March 31st for trying to smuggle drugs in vehicles, U.S. Customs and Border Protection data shows. In 2018 and 19 fiscal years, Americans were caught roughly twice as often as Mexicans. As cross-border travel shifted to essential travel only, criminal organizations shifted their operations well, the agency said in a recent statement. It noted it's increasingly seized drugs trafficked by U.S. citizens and by commercial trucks during the pandemic. Both groups are exempt from restrictions at U.S. land borders. Despite early pandemic disruptions to the global drug trade, illegal substances have since been pouring into the United States, the world's largest consumer of them. Customs and Border Protection says narcotic seizures along the U.S.-Mexico border have increased slightly in the 2021 year, while the U.S. Department of Homeland Security has said Mexican traffickers' ability to move drugs into the country have stayed largely intact. Most illegal drugs in the U.S., particularly narcotics, enter at the southern border. Americans are critical to these operations, and trafficking experts say that drug organizations are much more adept at changing than the government is. And now a professor of the Border and National Security at the University of Texas, El Paso, says Customs and Border Protection figures show that the agency seized nearly 92,000 pounds of drugs from vehicles at southern ports of entry between October 2020 and May. U.S. citizens had been apprehended about 2,400 times by late March for drug smuggling during inspections of vehicles crossing those checkpoints. In comparison, just 361 such apprehensions during the same period involved Mexican citizens, who are generally second behind Americans for drug trafficking arrests at ports of entry. Arrests of U.S. citizens who bring drugs through in their bodies also have risen. In the first 4 months of the 2020 year, 505 Americans were arrested with drugs concealed in their bodies at southern checkpoints, compared with just 35 people from all other countries during the same period. And next we have California hit beaches. They travel ahead of virus rules easing. California is headed to campgrounds, beaches, and restaurants over the long holiday weekend as the state prepared to shed some of its coronavirus rules. Southern California beaches were busy with families barbecuing and children playing in the sand and surf. Business owners said that they were scrambling to hire workers to keep up with the stream of customers eager to get out since virus cases have fallen. It feels very, very close to normal, Bob Alfera said. He's a resident of Seaside, Santa Monica. The surge in travel and recreation comes as California prepares to relax social distancing and masking rules in 2 weeks, as long as the virus cases remain low. California was the first U.S. state to impose a statewide shutdown when the virus emerged in March 2020 and the nation's epicenter for the disease in early 21. But the state has reported a significant turnaround. In recent weeks, newly reported infections in California have fallen below 1,000 on some days, and the state's positivity rate has been 1%. The state is now expected to end its tier system for business operations on June 15th. Already about 90% of California's population is in the lower two of the state's 4 tiers guiding business activities. Large-scale indoor events will have vaccination or negative test requirements until at least October. The change in the pandemic-related rules comes as Californians gear up for summertime fun. And at Los Angeles International Airport, travel reached a 2021 record on Friday, with more than 78,000 passengers passing through transportation security checkpoints. Airports officials said that the daily passenger traffic is still about half of what it was 2 years ago, but has been steadily increasing. Well, that's good for, the economy. Next, we have the amid grief manhunt in Miami continues for 3 shooters. A manhunt continued into the Memorial Day for 3 masked suspects who opened fire early Sunday morning outside a Miami banquet hall, killing 2 men and wounded 21 others in a shooting, authorities said, that has spread terror and grief through their communities. That anguish was reinforced Monday by a grieving father who interrupted a news conference just as the Miami-Dade Police Department's director, Alfredo Ramirez, was decrying the weekend's gun violence and appealing for the community's help in tracking down the shooters. "You killed my kid with no reason," the distraught man yelled out as he was escorted away from cameras. Police will later confirm that the man, Clayton Dillard, is the father of one of the 2 26-year-old men who were gunned down outside the banquet hall that was hosting a rap concert. And on Monday, police released a snippet from the surveillance video that showed a white SUV driving into an alley at the Strip Mall, housing that the El Mula Banquet Hall in Northwest, near the Halela. The video shows 3 people getting out of the vehicle, one gripping a handgun, while the other 2 carried what police described as an assault-styled rifle. That's when the gunman sprayed bullets indiscriminately into the crowd, even though police said the assailants had specific targets in mind. Ramirez stated that the shooters waited between 20 and 40 minutes before attacking shortly after midnight. Police said some in the crowd returned fire. The video does show 3 men returning moments later and driving off into the darkness. And all 23 people were shot. In addition to the 2 fatalities, 3 others were in the hospital in critical condition. Because of privacy law, police were not releasing the names of any of the victims. The SUV used in the shooting was later found Monday, submerged in a canal about 8 miles east of the banquet hall. Police said that the vehicle was reported stolen 2 weeks ago. Sunday's shooting came a little more than a day after a drive-by shooting claimed the life of one person outside another venue about 13 miles away in the Wynwood area. 6 others were injured. Some witnesses likened the scene to a war zone after a barrage of dozens of bullets sent people scurrying in the night. This is a weekend when we should be out remembering, enjoying time with our loved ones, and instead we're here mourning. And that was from Miami-Dade County Mayor. And he said that at a Monday press conference that these despicable shootings in Northwest Miami-Dade and in Wynwood area are shameful acts of violence that have left innocent people dead and injured. Police also stated that the 2 shootings were unrelated. Police said Sunday's shooting appeared to stem from rivalries between two groups, but declined to refer to those groups as gangs. Businessman and TV personality Marcus Lemonis, star of The Prophet, pledged $100,000 towards a reward fund to help authorities capture the suspects. And next, what do we have? Doctor's death after COVID vaccine was being... Oh, wait, hold on one second. I'm sorry. Was being investigated. Private company takes over in Puerto Rico. Power company service, a private company, on Tuesday took over the transmission and distribution operations of Puerto Rico's Power Authority, which has struggled with blackouts and bankruptcy, corruption, and mismanagement. The takeover by Luma Energy under a 15-year contract coincided with the beginning of the Atlantic hurricane season, with many across Puerto Rico worried about the transition and whether the new company can handle a severe storm. The U.S. territory is still struggling to recover from Hurricane Maria, which destroyed most of the power grid in September of 2017. The agreement approved by the territory's government and a federal control board caused for Luma to spend billions of dollars in upgrading the battered system, with most of that money coming from the U.S. Federal Emergency Management Agency, while receiving hundreds of millions of dollars for managing the system. Officials are betting the private operator can do better than the island's Electric Power Authority, which has struggled to restore the storm-battered electrical grid and keep power flowing while trying to cope with $9 billion in debt, more than that of any government agency in Puerto Rico. Even with privatization, most analysts expect the government and control board will be forced to agree to an eventual power rate increase to meet the demands of bondholders. Meanwhile, the new company inherited unresolved blackouts with more than 30,000 customers left without power in the recent weeks. We don't wish to go into June 1st with a large backlog of outages, but it's what's going to be, it's going to be, Stansby said. Puerto Rico chose Luma in June 2020 to operate and modernize the island's transmission and distribution system. Governor Pedro Pierluisi said that the company has pledged to reduce power interruptions by 30%, the length of outages by 40%, and cut workplace accidents by 50%. We've had a bankrupt, incompetent public utility for too long. The transformation that is underway will definitely make a difference. But critics have called on to the government to cancel the deal. A Texas-based nonprofit, the Institute for Energy Economics and Financial Analysis, complained that Luma would not be penalized for failing to save money or meet renewable energy goals. The Puerto Rico-based Center for a New Economy, a nonpartisan think tank, also criticized the deal, saying that there are no guarantees that the process to modernize and transform the electric authority will be successful. Puerto Rico's power generation unit averages 45 years old, twice those of the United States mainland, and a fiscal plan approved by the federal board foresees Luma spending $3.85 billion through the fiscal year 2024 to revamp the transmission and distribution system. And next in sports, 4-time slam champ Osaka, she is out of the French Open. Cites anxiety. Naomi Osaka withdrew from the French Open on Monday and wrote on Twitter that she will be taking a break from competition. A dramatic turn of events for a four-time Grand Slam champion who says she experiences huge waves of anxiety before speaking to the media and reveals she has suffered long bouts of depression. Osaka's agent, Stuart DeGeed, confirmed that the world's #2 ranked tennis player was pulling out before her second-round match at the clay court tournament in Paris. The stunning move came a day after Osaka, a 23-year-old who was born in Japan and moved with her family to the U.S. at age 3, was fined $15,000 for skipping the post-match news conference after her first-round victory at the French Open. She also was threatened by all 4 Grand Slam tournaments with possible additional punishment, including disqualification or suspension if she continued with her intention, which Osaka revealed last week on Twitter to not do any press during Roland Garros. She framed the matter as a mental health issue, saying that it can create self-doubt to have to answer questions after a loss. First and foremost, we are sorry and sad for Naomi Osaka. The outcome of Naomi withdrawing from Roland Garros is unfortunate. French Tennis Federation President Gilles Moreton said Monday, "We wish her the best and the quickest possible recovery. We look forward to having Naomi in our tournament next year." And in Monday's post, Osaka spoke about dealing with depression since the 2018 U.S. Open, which she won by beating Serena Williams in a final filled with controversy. "I would never trivialize mental health or use the term lightly," Osaka wrote, explaining that speaking with the media makes her anxious. "I think now the best thing for the tournament, the other players, and my well-being is that I withdraw so that everyone can get back to focusing on the tennis going on in Paris." She also stated, "I never want to be a distraction, and I accept that my timing was not ideal and my message could have been clearer." She also continued to state, "Anyone that knows me knows that I'm introverted, and anyone that has seen me at the tournaments will notice that I'm often wearing headphones as that helps dull my anxiety. I am not a natural public speaker and get huge waves of anxiety before I speak to the world's media." Well, then let her just be her. Tennis players are required to attend news conferences if requested to do so. The maximum fine of $20,000 is not a big deal to Osaka, the world's highest earning female athlete, thanks to endorsement contracts totaling tens of millions of dollars. It's not a problem to her to pay a fine, but it is an issue for her to have to speak in public. And if you've seen the media, you have about 20, maybe 30 different people with their mics and their phones. The anxiety builds up. Everybody doesn't enjoy that. And I don't understand how that they have to get fined for that. But anyway, I'm going to close it out as I always do with my community news. And for tomorrow, Wednesday, June 2nd at 6:30 p.m., it is Global Running Day. They are going to be meeting up at Yankee Stadium. BXRD is a union-based running crew that began in 2018. It started off with Boogie Down Bronx Runners, Bronx Nomads, Mile Style, and Bronx Soul. We wanted to create something like BXRD to the running crews in the Bronx and all to bring all of our communities together. They did it in regards together in an effort to show that the Bronx is truly serious about our health and well-being. Global Running Day is not an event that BDRX created, but rather something that's gone on for years to celebrate the sport of running, and it was never truly celebrated in the Bronx until BXRD made it a big event a few years ago. All of the groups with BXRD have the common goal of helping the Bronx become a more health-conscious borough through the sport of running. And that is it for your news. I am Kim Seabrook. You are on Millennium TV 24, and we will see you next time. Thank you so much.